It is Thursday, July 27th, 2023. This is another edition of Baseball Today. That is my man, Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose, producer Dan along for the ride as well, and producer BBD helping us out on the ones and twos as he is assisting Plouffe up there in NYC. Speaking of, a quick tip of the cap to none other than Aaron Judge, who's expected to return to the Yankees lineup on Friday. Forget about those rehab games. I just need some sim games. I'll be ready to go. Have you seen the big man around the city?
I have not seen him walking around the city. I imagine Judge and I would live completely different lives if we both lived in New York. I think he's on a different tier here. He's hanging with Drake, my former neighbor, going to Madison Square Garden, all that stuff. So, him and I probably would never cross paths here. Not yet.
Probably.
I'm working my way up there.
Oh, yeah, I like it. You're moving up the New York City ladder rungs. There's no question about that. We will break down his return and much more coming up on Friday's show. But right out of the gate, let's get to it. Late on Wednesday night, we had the first monumental trade. This came just hours after Tom Verducci's report that the Angels were pulling Shohei off the market. So we expected them to be buyers, and that's exactly what they were. They pick up Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez, a starter and a reliever, from the Chicago White Sox for their numbers 2 and 3 prospects overall. Edgar Caro is a switch-hitting catcher. He's only 20 years old. Minor league pitcher, the left-hander Kai Bush is a former second-round pick of the Halos. Do you like the Angels going for it instead of breaking things up?
Well, I think there's a couple different ways to look at this, Rosie. I personally like the fact that they're going for it because Ohtani is such a unique person here. And the fact that he is a rental, nobody knew what to offer, I feel like, for a guy like this. Like, it's never been around. So, like, gauging interest probably was an interesting task for the Angels and Perry Manazian. What I think happened was, and this is all speculation, okay? Because I'm not in there talking to Ard Moreno about any of this, but you don't want to be the guy that traded Shohei Ohtani. Now, there's a caveat to that. If Shohei has told you, hey, man, like, I'm not going to come back here, you have no chance to re-sign me, I think it almost forces your hand to say, okay, then I have to trade you. To me, this means that Shohei has not told them that and will entertain offers from the Angels to come back in the offseason. And if that's the case, then this is a no-brainer to go for it. I mean, they have been playing better balls of late. They bring in Lucas and Lopez, to shore up some of the pitching there. I think it's great for, the city of Anaheim and all the Angels fans that have stuck around for so long. It's a great place to go watch a ball game. The fans are always showing up there. I think this is like almost like a beautiful gesture from Artie Moreno in the front office to the fans almost, because I think a lot of people assumed that he was gone and he wasn't going to be there. And if he stayed, it wasn't for sure they were going to add. I mean, they added probably, one of the best starting pitchers on the market. Plus you get a reliever. Plus, Jeimer Candelario is, I guess they're in talks to maybe move him there. Like, if they're going to go for it, I think they're actually going to go for it. And to me, it's like, I love it. I love it for the fans. I talked about this yesterday on the show with the Cubs and their front office and their ownership. Like, sometimes you have to give a little bit to the fans. I think there's a little bit of that here, and then a little bit of Artie Moreno being like, dude, I don't want to be the guy to trade Shohei Ohtani. So it's worked out. I love it. I think a lot of people who are hoping that Shohei would come to their team, they're the ones that are disappointed, but most of the baseball world, I feel like, is now rooting for the Angels, and I think it's good. I like it.
I just want to see Shohei in the playoffs. I want to see Mike Trout in the playoffs. You hear me say this at least once every few weeks, that outside of the Guardians, I root hardest for the Angels because of that. And I will continue to root for them. That does not mean that I agree with them. This is the biggest risk in the history of deadline deals, far and away. Because what is it? The great unknown is, what's going to make Shohei stay? Is it making a run for the playoffs like they're going to do and lessen their farm system even more? I think Fangraphs has them now dead last out of the 30 teams in terms of prospects, future prospects. So what are you going to sell? That we've got all these great prospects coming up? Because that's not reality. Are you going to sell to him in the offseason? We're so good at bringing in veteran players like Anthony Rendon, who's barely been on the field? Like, is that what you're going to sell to Shohei? What is going to make him stay? Is it going to be the 6th place team in the playoffs? Maybe. We don't know that. We are not privy to the discussions that Shohei and his team have had with Artie Moreno and the front office brass, if they've had any. And, oh, by the way, Shohei's allowed to change his mind. What if he said, you know what, if we make the playoffs this year, regardless of if it's ALS champs or the third wild card, I'm coming back.
He's never going to say that. Stop. He'll never say that.
I know, but whatever it could be. What if he says, okay, I'll entertain the offer? I mean,
that's all they're hoping for.
Okay, but now you're running your organization on a hope.
I mean, what were they before?
Sound like a good way to run your business?
What was their farm system ranked before they gave away these two guys? In the bottom half,
29th.
Sure. And now they're last. So what's the difference? What's the difference?
The difference is negligible. I understand that. But what else do they have to deal with? This team, as constructed right now, might make the playoffs. But I know that Boston's playing better than them. And neither of those teams hold a wild card spot last year, now.
To me, I feel like that doesn't mean anything. I get that Shohei wants to be in the playoffs, obviously. The Angels want to be in the playoffs, obviously. I don't think that he's thinking in his mind, well, in the last year of my time here, if we make the playoffs, that's going to be a decision maker. It's not. It's not. No. So I told you what's going to take to get this guy. Everyone's going to be flashing the dollars at him. $60 million a year is the starting point. It's not, at this point, it's not going to be about who gives him the largest contract. It's not going to be that way. So if Artie Moreno and the Angels want to stick around, they're going to have to get creative. I told you and again, I haven't had any conversations, but this is just me being a big brain baseball dude, a sports guy. Okay. They have looked at the Messi contract and said, I want that. I want something like that. That's bigger than dollars. Because at that point, when you're talking, this guy's going to get $500 million to $600 million as a starting point, it's not about the money anymore. It's about, okay, well, what can we do? Is there some sort of team ownership? Is there something like that we can do? That's what it's going to take to get Shohei. And maybe Moreno and the Angels have wised up to that and said, you know what?
Hold on. You really think that? You think that Artie Moreno, what has shown that Artie Moreno has been a top 10 owner in this league? Is there anything?
What is that? Top 10 owner in the league has nothing to do with this discussion that we're having right now.
Bullshit. It has everything to do with it, because who makes it? You're talking about, well, they're going to have to get creative.
Yeah.
Artie Moreno get creative with deals? No, that's not what he does.
I mean, this is a different thing. No owners has gotten this creative with you. You can say that about every single owner that owns a baseball team. They've never done something like this. It's going to take something like that, I believe, for Shohei to go to your team. So they're going to get out of the comfort zone. I don't
have the faith in Artie Moreno if I'm an Angels fan today. Now, what I am happy about is that we can put to rest for the last 2.5 months of this season that he's going anywhere. He is ours. We're going to try and make a run. And I don't care how tough the schedule is, which it is, by the way. I don't care if we still have some shortcomings in the bullpen, which you do, by the way. We're going to go make a run. Mike Trout's going to be back. Drury's going to be back, and we're going to give it our all. And I hope you make it. And I hope that maybe that's enough to keep Shohei Ohtani around. All I'm telling you is if I'm running a business, I can't run it on a hope. I can't run on a hope. There are things, and people will say, well, Tom Verducci reported that they were just getting offered mid-level prospects. I'm calling bullshit on that. I'm not saying Tom's a liar. I'm saying that what he was told was a heap of shit. I'm not buying that at all. The White Sox just got the numbers 2 and 3 ranked prospects, albeit in a terrible farm system, from the Angels for a starting pitcher and a relief pitcher that, if you combine, are not Shohei Ohtani. So I'm not buying that at all. Not buying it.
I'm not either. I guarantee there are teams out there willing to give up a few of their top 10 prospects, at least, to get Shohei. I just think this is such a unique situation. And say what you want about Artie Moreno and the things he's done in the past, because there's plenty you can talk about, no doubt about it. But this is a different situation that's been presented. And I really think that, and fan bases, listen up. You can tell your owners this if you want. I really think it's going to take something unique, like we saw with the Messi contract, to get this guy to come to your team. Bottom line.
That's fine. But once and for all, we don't need to talk about the future as much as today. The decision to keep him today.
Awesome. I love it. How do you not love it? You're crazy, man.
Because I don't think it's best for the franchise in the future. That's why.
There isn't a prospect in the game that you can give me like, oh, this makes sense. I'll give you a player that we've never seen in the sport of baseball before. That makes it worthwhile. No chance, dude. It doesn't. It is
the best.
You're talking about rolling the dice? That's rolling the dice.
Hey, listen, dude. You're right. It is. It's a gamble either way. There's no question. And the easier path is to keep him, to keep your fan base engaged, to say, hey, listen, we did everything we could to surround Shohei. Why the hell did they wait until year 5, month 10 of his tenure out in Anaheim to really start putting the screws on? That's
not fair to them. They've made decisions they thought would help their team out, and it didn't happen. It's not like they've been going, being lackadaisical about people they bring in surrounding Shohei. They thought they were making the right moves. They just didn't make the right moves, or they didn't.
Really, they signed Matt Harvey to a 1-year deal. They signed Trevor Cahill to a 1-year deal. They signed Noah Syndergaard to a 1-year deal. That's what's really going to put you over the top, guys.
But other teams do this. We're like, oh, hey, they're going to fix him. This is great. So it's just, we talk about the Angels in a different light because they haven't had success. But look. You can't always do that with them. I think this is the smartest decision that they've made.
Okay. Once again, I'm rooting for him. I hope it works. I don't want to be. It's not important for me to be the guy that says, "See, I was right." I would rather be wrong here for the Angels. I hope they make the playoffs, and I hope that helps with keeping Shohei. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No, I don't. But
Moustakas, Eddie Escobar, glue guys, come on.
Good. And Lucas is a great glue guy. There's few starting pitchers that are more into a game than Lucas Giolito. Watch him on the rails. I think it's exciting. All right, we're going to have to get through some of these other ones quickly. LA's other team did add an opening day shortstop from a major league roster for the second straight day, right? They traded for Kike Hernandez, who was Boston's opening day shortstop. I think he was, at least. Might have been in center that first day, but primarily their shortstop the first few months. And then yesterday, they pick up Amed Rosario from Cleveland for Noah Syndergaard and some cash. Is this a better move by the Dodgers or the Guardians?
Sheesh. From listening to you explain before the show, you kind of explained the Guardians side of it. I don't know. I think it's probably a better move for the Dodgers because they're just trying to figure out someone to play shortstop. Right now, it's Miggy, it's Kike, and it's Rosario, who they brought over. I think they're also looking to fortify the bench a little bit. I think they're trying to get Mookie back in the outfield on lefty days so they can not have Outman out there, they don't want him hitting against lefties. So I think there's something about that. And I think Rosario has hit well against lefties and same with Kike historically. So I think really for them, it's about roster construction and about bench depth. And who knows if everybody that they've brought over is even going to be on the postseason roster. I think they're going to feel some things out. And on the Guardians side, you're going to probably explain it a little bit better than I could. But they're trying to open up a spot for some of these guys at the higher levels who can play shortstop. There's a little bit of logjam there. So I think both teams, it was just a roster flexibility decision, not something that's either going to lead a team to the playoffs or take them out of the playoff contention.
From the Dodgers standpoint here, yes, Amed Rosario has an 822 OPS against lefties, and he's always done very well. I can tell you this, having watched every Guardians game this year, he's an unmitigated disaster at shortstop. They've traded for the 2 worst defensive shortstops in consecutive days.
Yeah.
What you have is one of the most dependable gloves. I get it. Miguel Rojas isn't going to mistake anybody for these wonderful hitting shortstops around baseball. He is not Corey Seager. He is not even Dansby Swanson, who's had a nice solid year at the plate. We know what he is. But you know what he does? Catch the fucking baseball. Go ask a pitcher if they would rather have a guy that hits 220 with no homers behind him or a guy who might have an 822 OPS, but you wouldn't trust to hold the baby at shortstop because he's going to bobble it. That's a tough sell come playoff time. I want a guy who's going to catch the ball because you know what? I pay Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, JD Martinez, Max Muncy, Will Smith to go hit that fucking ball over the fence. I don't pay Miguel Rojas to do it. I pay him to go catch the ball. Amed Rosario plays super hard. He runs the bases harder than anybody I've ever watched, and I appreciated his time in Cleveland. But I'm telling you, when it comes down to it, he's going to be a 5-inning guy. Get him 2, maybe 3 at-bats in Dodgers lineup in the playoffs, and then you put Miguel Rojas in there. Like, does that make sense?
It could. It could. I believe Miggy's going to get the majority of the starts going forward. I do. I think this is, again, like I said, a bench depth kind of acquisition. And yeah, you can spell a few guys here and there against a lefty and put him out there. And the thing about, you said you've watched him play and he's been so bad out there. The numbers do support that sometimes. And you'll hear this quite often from front offices, like that's the public defensive numbers and they have their own internal defensive numbers. That's why we question these numbers all the time.
Those are bad too.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I trust your input here. Like I said, I believe you're totally right about Miggy catching the ball. Like he's going to play the majority of the games at shortstop, and then it's a bench acquisition piece. This is not something that we need to get worked up over, I don't think.
No. And by the way, the Dodgers gave away Noah Syndergaard. They covered the difference in money. Yes. He was never going to throw a pitch for the Dodgers again. He was never going to. So it's smart. Very quickly from the Guardians standpoint, you talked about they still have a serious logjam at shortstop. Gabriel Arias is going to get that shot. Brian Rocchio, who's been very good. I think he's got like a 16-game hitting streak in the minor leagues. Might get another shot at the big leagues here. Tyler Freeman's a kid. If they want to, they could move Jimenez back to shortstop and let Tyler Freeman play second base. So we'll see what all these possibilities mean for the Cleveland Guardians. And Syndergaard, if he can give the Guardians any innings whatsoever, I don't know if he can. I'm really worried about that. It's imperative because 60% of their starting rotation are rookies, are guys who did not break camp with the team. They're going to hit those rookie innings limits that everybody imposes on kids these days. They're going to hit it at some point in September. And so they're going to need some bullets out of there, particularly with injuries to Bieber and McKenzie and Cal Quantrill.
This is for another day, but I don't understand the innings limits. Why don't we just start the guys in June then so we can have them for the most important part of the year, which is playoff run? If we're going to do this, why are we starting them in April and ending their season in August? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's a good thought. And just real quickly, you have to build them up at some point, right? Sure. So when do you start that? Late April?
Sure.
Innings are innings, whether they're in the minor leagues or the major leagues.
Their spring training starts in April. I don't know. It's just stupid to me. And it sucks for the players on these teams. The Marlins are going through it now. They had to send Yuri Perez down. It sucks for the guys on the team. We're working our ass off trying to make a playoff run, and all of a sudden you take our starters away from us.
Yeah. It's a great point.
We're hot today, bro.
We are hot. I'm telling you, man. There's a lot of fiery stuff. Yeah. Okay, the Bally Sports Regional Networks, the nation's leading television and streaming provider of local sports, and they make up 18 RSNs. So it's the way that Brewers fans watch their Brew Crew. It's how the Tigers fans watch that team up there in Detroit. Marlins fans watch their team in Miami. You're kind of following my gist. And, of course, with the new pitch clock rules, the game has been changed for the better, right? We love the tempo. There's less downtime. There's more action, the faster pace. But there's just one problem in the pitch clock era. There's no time to drink those big old tall boys at the game anymore or when you're at home. Shorter games call for shorter beers. And with these shorter games, Bally Sports is having a short boy summer. That's right. Bally Sports has created these things. Short boys, 8.4-ounce cans of delicious baseball beer. They're crisp. They're refreshing. Look at these little things. They're adorable as well. Canned stubby, but substantial, and only available in select markets. So shorter games, once again, mean shorter beers. It's time for the Short Boys Summer. Watch shorter games on Bally Sports and streaming on the Bally Sports app. Cheers to you. We continue on with John Paul Morosi saying that the Marlins are very interested in Cody Bellinger. Now, you and I both think now, because the Cubs have been on this hot streak, I think they won 8 of 9 or something like that, that they ain't going anywhere, that he's staying put and perhaps Stroman is staying put. But bigger picture here, has Bellinger worked his way back into being a $150 million ball player this offseason?
Yeesh. My initial thought on this was yes. He made $17 million in arbitration. So like we're looking at a guy that is that type of player, right? And this year he's certainly proved it. He has a 905 OPS right now with a 141 OPS plus. To me, it's like he's 28 years old. For him to get up to the 150 range, we're talking he needs to be at like a 7-year deal. I don't know if he gets a 7-year deal, and I don't even know if he wants a 7-year deal. I'm not really sure where his head's at. So I think in AAV terms, yes, I think he's that type of player. Now, the years matter when you're talking about getting to 150, but I'll say as an AAV guy, Bellinger on the open market right now is looking somewhere between 18 to 22 million dollars a year. And because of his age, he will get around the 5-year mark. So I think he's going to be right around there. Series. I don't know if he gets to 150 per se, but he'll be in that AAV type situation. He's had an incredible year. And we talked about it yesterday. I really do hope the Cubs keep him and they decide to go for it instead of trading him and Stroman away. I think it would be beneficial to their fan base and just to the club overall in years to come. Sometimes you got to give it to the fans, man. I'm telling you, this is great. If they do this and the Angels do it, I think it's like a precedent set almost like, hey man, like screw trading everybody away and planning for the future. Sometimes you got to go for it now. I love it. And so to answer your question, I think he gets a little bit under that, but the AAV will be there.
So his OPS is over 900. He hit another bomb last night. He was a one-dotter his MVP season in 2019. Then it fell under 800. Then it was around 540. The next year it improved 100 points, but still right around 650. And he looks lost. He looks much closer now to the MVP Cody Bellinger. I'm happy for him. Now, he's going to be 28 at the time of his free agency. He just turned 28 at the beginning of this month. So I think what he's got in his favor is that he certainly looks the part. Mm-hmm. And his positional versatility is off the charts. He is great in center field. He is phenomenal at first base. And the reason that's important is you can keep him on the field. Some guys might have to move from center to right to DH during an 8-year deal. That's not his trajectory, in my opinion. He might have to go from center to right to full-time first baseman. But as long as I can keep that DH spot open, that's a big deal for me. It allows me to sign other veterans that might have to take over that spot. So I think he can get a Brandon Nimmo 8 for 162, and people wouldn't blink at it.
And people have to remember, dude, like 2020, we kind of threw out the window whether you were good or bad. We're like, you know what? Those stats are strange because of the situation that happened, okay? And then during that year, he hurts his shoulder. I know he's come back and said, oh, yeah, and before 2022, my shoulder was healthy, but that's not always the case, dude. So I think there was a little bit of that where he was still trying to get back and feeling like himself. He definitely has like all the tools to be a premium type player. So I'm rooting for the guy.
I am too. It'll be risky, though. I mean, whatever GM signs him to that deal, there's definitely risk that he goes back to looking what he did those last couple seasons with the Dodgers, which was not pretty, but maybe he's found something here. Boston Red Sox, sweep of Atlanta, best record in July. Is Boston a serious World Series contender now?
Wow. Oh, man. I mean, yeah, I think they are. You know, there's a few teams that you say, yes, like they're for sure in contention for the World Series without even thinking about it. We know who those teams are. Boston, because of kind of the way they started, and we don't know, like their starting pitchers aren't really household names yet. So we don't really put them in that category, but they've been playing really, really good ball over the last 2 months, like almost some of the best ball in all of baseball. If you look at their lineup is there. They're a top 5 offense in baseball, right? Check. Their relievers, their bullpen, really, really good. So that means something in the playoffs. We know if you get a hot bullpen in the playoffs and you're able to shorten games, that's a way to the World Series and winning a World Series. So check. Now, the thing that we have to talk about with them is their starting pitching. So I think they're getting some guys back. I mean, they're getting Trevor Story back, which is going to hopefully help their offense as well. It should, obviously. Sale's coming back, Whitlock and Houck. Like, what are those guys going to look like? If one of those 3 guys who I just mentioned is looks really good. Then we have like 4 guys that you can rely on. Bayo's been great. Cutter Crawford's been a good back of the rotation type guy, like a 3 or a 4 type guy. James Paxton has looked really good. So like the pitching depth isn't as bad as maybe everyone thinks it is. If they get those starters back and they look the part at all, then we're talking about a team that's like kind of complete. I would like to bring in a few more pitchers with the trade deadline, but even if they don't do that, they just get the guys healthy again. And we've seen Red Sox teams get hot. So I'm not going to put them on like a top tier with like the Braves or anything like that. But you put this team in the playoffs and the right guys get hot at the right time, sure. 100% there will.
You don't have to put them up there with the Braves because they're not in the same league as them.
Sure.
I look at the landscape of the American League, and we've asked this question before on Baseball Today, like who's the team to beat? I don't know who that is. I have no idea. Is it Baltimore now? Can Tampa rediscover its magic? Is Houston, with everybody getting healthy and their pedigree, the team to do it? Can Texas add more to their bullpen to go along with that offense and starting pitching that's been solid? Or is it somebody else? Like, there's so many questions about every other team that Boston has just continued to play good, solid baseball. And I've done a huge 180 on them. I didn't understand. I thought their offseason was really interesting, but I didn't quite understand it. And they've won me over. They really have. And by the way, Rafael Devers is back to playing like an MVP. It's been a little bit under the radar these last couple of weeks. His first half was substandard for him. He's been really good.
They've had a lot of things go right, Chris. To your defense, preseason. Okay, you're talking about leaning on Tristan Casas, who's 23 years old. Well, he's done great. 836 OPS. Mm-hmm. Jaron Duran comes up, 865 OPS. Right. A lot of people are questioning the Yoshida move. He's been great. So it's like a lot of things had to go right, and they have gone right. Offensively, this team has been awesome. And so now it kind of looks foolish to question some of those guys at the beginning of the year. But if you turn back the clock, I think was warranted at the time. But they've been proving a lot of people wrong, which is exactly what a Boston Red Sox franchise likes to do.
Now, I don't think that Chaim Bloom can stand still. I think he's got to do something before next week's deadline. And I'll be excited to see if there is anything, because they do have some guys in the minor leagues that other teams will covet. It'll just be interesting to see if they pull the trigger on some of that stuff. That'll be fascinating. You know what else is fascinating? A big-time undisputed welterweight world championship. It's coming your way in just 2 days. Saturday, July 29th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Errol Spence Jr. taking on Terrence Crawford live on ppv.com, which is the only streaming platform where boxing fans can participate in a live interactive fan chat hosted by boxing experts. And for Spence Crawford, the chat host will be none other than our very own old man, Dan Canobio. He'll be joined by his buddy Chris Algieri and legendary boxing writer Lance Pugmire. If you've ever joined us on a blitzball chat or anything else, it is a great way to get your point across, to have fun with your community and talk shit and challenge the hosts and the analysts. It is a great time. PPV.com, the most convenient, most reliable, most engaging way to stream pay-per-view events, and there are no subscriptions required ever, which is awesome. You can download the PPV.com app to all your favorite devices, which means you can watch it on your computer, your phone, and, of course, stream it on your big screen TV. So order Spence Crawford on ppv.com right now. Believe me, it is the best way to watch this fight. You will not want to miss it. Before we get out of here, Rangers lead the AL West back up to 2 after taking the series finale down in Houston. It was a crazy game. Yordan Alvarez, his first game back, he got hit by Andrew Heaney. Did the Astros then retaliate by plugging Marcus Semien right in the back? It certainly looked that way. That's the way Semien felt. He then hit a homer later in the game and said something to Martin Maldonado. He was then on base during an Adolis Garcia grand slam and walked past him and said something else. And then benches emptied. Semien and Maldonado were tossed. Here's Marcus Semien on what went down.
I ended up scoring on a home run. I told Martin, we're going to win this game. And we proceeded to score 11 runs after that. I said, I told you. And I ended up out of the game.
Martin have anything to say to you? Because he has a lot to say to a lot of guys.
Well, I told him when Nate hit the home run, I said, we're going to win this game. He said, no, it's just like when you were in Oakland.
Owie.
That was kind of a funny line. I got to be honest with you a little bit. Made me chuckle. Would you have liked to have seen the umpires just let this thing go instead of throwing those two guys out?
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Marcus or anyone needed to get thrown out of it. It's just a little tussle there. And, if we're going back to it, I don't think Heaney hit Jordan on purpose. Sure didn't seem that way. I mean, that'd be something. If the Rangers were like, you know what? First game back, let's just let them know what's up. I mean, that's a possibility. I think it's a low possibility, but then clearly Framber hit Semien on purpose. I wish Framber would have just stood there instead of acting. I know he wants to stay in the game, but with no warnings issued, and I guess Perdomo just got thrown out of the game the other day. So maybe he was watching that. He acts like he didn't hit him on purpose. Clearly that was on purpose. And Semien knew it, and that's why he was not happy about it. And I don't know. I the whole thing is just ball. Like, I had nothing wrong with any of it. It's just, it happens, especially against those two teams who are fighting on top of the division. Dude, it's July 27th. I know they're inside, but it's hot outside. Things get a little crazy in Texas when it gets hot in the summer.
Lot to say there. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen him stay in the game just to see what would have happened later. I don't know. A couple of veterans. They've been going at it a long time. By the way, Marcus Semien's like one of the sweetest people ever. Right?
Dude, to see him worked up like that I think it hurt when he got hit. That's why that'll get you fired up.
Whereas if I'm having a fight in Major League Baseball and you have to draft players, Martin Maldonado is an easy lottery pick.
Really? Why?
Oh, God. Have you ever heard about his hands?
What about his hands?
I mean, he's got boxer hands.
What does that even mean, C-Rose?
Hands of stone? Come on.
Why? How do you know that? Has he punched you before?
Yeah, well, I am 0-3
I wanted
all-time
to.
in fights. I am not getting drafted in the lottery for fights. 0-3 all time. Not pretty.
Okay, so now we're talking Semien versus Maldonado fight odds. It's an interesting fight. Maldonado's got the weight, but Semien's quick, and he's strong too. Got a lot of money.
Could be fun. We are back at it again on Friday, right? You're not going anywhere. You're going to be
going anywhere. I'll be right here.
All right. Probably noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We'll keep you posted on our social media channels.
Yeah.
For our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, who is actually two-of-a-kind because BBD was helping out in the studio. Thanks, BBD. And the always talented Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose. We will see you Friday on Baseball Today.